Hi everybody. One of my favorite things about this room when we redid it is this textured wall. Love, love, love it. I ended up having enough extra that I could add another batch of them around the rest of the room, just along the top, with the molding that covers where the lighting is. And on a day like today, when it's really overcast and rainy and dark, this really shows up beautifully, and I love it so much. So I had a few tiles left over. We're doing some work upstairs, and I thought, well, let's put them to use because I love them so much in this room. Why would I not use the rest? So a couple of things that we learned the hard way that we'll show you in the process of installing them again upstairs. But the first thing I want you to know is there's two kinds of these available. One kind is plastic and the other kind is a cellulose paper. It feels very much like cardboard. And I was not interested in the plastic ones. I just don't like plastic in my life. So I didn't want anything to do with those. So I kept looking until I found a design I liked that came in the cardboard style or the paper. I think it's a bamboo product kind of thing. It's a, and I think they are available. I think we got these on eBay. I know there are some available on Amazon, but I didn't, like I said, I didn't want the plastic kind. So they're on the expensive side, but they can be used in small quantities to great effect. You know, so like, come on, is that not the best thing ever? I absolutely love these things. So I've asked my handsome Austrian to show you how to install them, because by the time we were done with that, he was an old pro, and he's an old pro anyway. But then I thought it might be good to also show you how to caulk them and paint them, because that's kind of a deal. And if you don't have like a big sprayer machine to come in and you're going to hire somebody else to paint them, you're actually going to paint them yourself, which is not that big a deal. It's just, it's good to know a few things before you go in. So this video is here to help you if you decide that you like these, and come on, they're spectacular, and want to do them in a room of your own. And here's how to install them, and here's how to paint them to get a really pleasing effect. And I hope that you enjoy these as much as we do on a daily basis. I walk into this room still after all this time and I'm just like, love these. Love, love, love them. So I know that they're going to look fantastic upstairs as well. And I think that if you like them, this video will help you know what you're in for if you should decide to purchase them. Ta-da! For those of you who remember our Skoolie, this is the kitchen from our Skoolie. We were able to salvage it from the bus. The person who purchased the bus wasn't going to need the kitchen, so was going to build his own kitchen. So this is a old antique that we used to great effect for kitchen storage. Love it. Cute fridge. Love that too. And then we have cubbies back here that are really convenient to keep plates and things, knives, forks, and spoons, and that kind of thing, really available. And that we loved in the Skoolie. Also, we used this in the Skoolie with the water storage, which was underneath back behind there. I did a whole video about our Skoolie kitchen, so I'll link that in the description below so you can get a feel for what it looked like in its previous life. But I'm so happy to be able to recycle it into this situation, because when you have a little workshop, it's nice to be able to wash your hands, or maybe dye some wool, or maybe, I don't know, cook supper when you're in the midst of a project that you don't want to leave. I mean, I am really, really happy we have this. Plus, I've created this space in a way that's going to work fantastic for me as a studio, but it will also, in the end, be very workable as a small apartment too. I mean, it's like the whole tiny house just kind of in a big attic space. So I'm loving it. All right, now here is my handsome Austrian to show you how to install the tiles, and then I will be back right after that to show you how to paint them. That's pretty important, because after all the installation, you don't want drips everywhere. So I will show you how to avoid that so that they turn out looking so beautiful, like that. Okay, stick around.
Hello, here we are. And we're going to install those cool wall tiles for the missus. Okay? There's some cute bamboo-based material. So they need to be out in the room for some time to acclimatize. And then when that's happened, we can proceed to stick them up. Let's do that. We got some marching orders from the missus. And that was, start here, go over there, and when you run out your capability of making complete rows, that's when you stop. You don't stop when you run out of those tiles, you stop before you run out of the tiles, after completing the last complete row. So that's at least our aim. Okay, and the way we do it, the missus has laid them out here already, which is really helpful. Okay, we're going to give each one just a teensy bit of air. We're going to start right here at the end. At the end. And we're going to give it, because it's got 4 flat spots on the back, we're going to give it 4. I said 4. Okay, here we go. See, there it comes. We're going to give it 4 squishes of schnutz. Okay. 4 squishes of schmutz. Right here, release button. Make sure that it can release on top of something that doesn't really matter, like this. Oh yes, and by the way, we're going to use an electric, heavy, whatever that is, nail gun. And this is OSB board. You don't need much power. You don't want to shoot right through, so we're going to see what happens if we use this thing. We need to adjust the torque setting. And never mind this. This is not important, I'm told. And it makes the racket. Okay, so warm the dog. Warm the dog. And let's make it just a touch stronger. The first two. There we go. Yeah. That was maybe too much stronger. There we go. Okay, so 4 nice little squishes. You can even be already looking forward and simply have this thing drain on top of your next piece. Okay? Now, I'm following the missus instructions and leave just a teensy little gap between. Okay? And it's noteworthy that this goes in actually quite nicely. Okay, see, machine shines right there where you need it, which is kind of cool. Put a squirt here, squirt there. Can you see what I'm doing? Squirt here, squirt there. let it rest on your next target. Make sure your work surface is clean so you don't dirty the faces of your friendly tiles. Okay. Hold the line. Go smackety, upfadi, schnickende, nuts, and we're in. Okay. This is our next guy. Whoopsie, there we go. Next, next, next. Yep. Let's put this on top of the next guy. Okay, and you just rub it in place gently, because that makes it happy. Okay? You like happy tiles. Because if you don't have happy tiles, then we're just not happy ourselves. Okay? Oopsie. Okay, I guess. Okay, there's a 2x4. That's cool. That's cool. That is what it is. That's cool. Okay, remember, Schmutzipitzen here. Make sure this schnitzen holds actually and doesn't roll off your workpiece onto the floor or onto something else, because it has the propensity of being really sticky. Oops, where you least need it. Okay? And we don't want it sticky where we don't need it. We want it sticky where we need it, which is just slightly below the thingy. Cool. Okay. And remember, the missus laid it out, so we just follow the instructions. If we can. If we cannot then we shan't. Because we won't. Okay, this is a good one. You might have noticed me just covering up the outlet. Oh, that's alright. We are wireless. We're literally wireless because some nincompoop who rented this place before was running out of funds and stripped the rental place of its wiring. That wasn't very nice, I say. And remember, don't nail your fingers or artwork. Okay. Well, here we've got a little problem. It's not a problem. Well, it is a problem if we have issues like this. But anyway, we're going to put this little buddy back. Nobody knows. Cool. Next row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we've got 6. I think we've got 6 here. What do you think? Looks like with a little bit of extra counting, we might even have more than 6. And here we're simply going to put a molding up, which provides a nice finishing edge next to covering up that nasty little hole. Okay. You have to adjust your nail gun so it doesn't shoot right through, okay? Because this thing is capable of shooting nails into solid, decent wood, not just OSB. You know, how do you call it? How do you call it? Beautiful, multi-layered croissant dough that the French like so much. Not only the French. Anyway, OSB is very much like that. Kind of, ugh, you know. Yeah, like this guy. Needs to be set, but this one's good. Nail gun is interesting. Because here we went into solid wood and they drove it nicely in. Here it didn't drive it in too far, simply because it is flexible. Okay? And the flexibility of the background took part of the brunt of us nailing it in place with the nail gun, and hence it didn't shoot all the way through. It's really amazing stuff that happens here. Okay, well, note to self also, by the way, or to somebody else, those tiles are not created equal. Okay? Just want to point that out. And this will also serve as a gentle sound deflector in the studio setting. Okay? Which is kind of cool. This is almost accumulative, which is kind of a little bit annoying, but that's okay. Cute little plastic Schnipfenpitzen in between. We don't need that. That's what you do. And when you're done, make sure you let the squirt bugs know that you're done. I'm just gonna put this thing over the top. Oh, you know what? We can do something really cool that I saw nobody else do. That's why we're gonna do it. Just going to put the plastic piece over the top and put the cartridge, back in place. Okay? You do this with the bags provided by America's Worst shopping. No. Or you can mess with the artwork. And put the safety bag on when you're done. And let's look. We've got 3 guys left. 3 guys, as we know, is not enough to make another row. We could make a half row. Ha ha ha. Okay. Well, that's a cool idea. But I think Carmen would like to have some sort of cool shelf up there. Okay. Oh, nice. We're going to make something cool. Remember this cool trick, okay? Put a piece of plastic over your open thingy and squish the... Just snug it up. Don't... Okay. Don't do that. Just snug it up and bingo. So you don't have to put a nail in there and other blah 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 business, okay?
So, it's a little bit tedious, but it makes a difference. So we're going to give it a whirl. And I'm going to try to get something. It's always good to have something to put under the end of the caulk gun to keep it off the stone. So let's try this, shall we? And I'm going to grab some tissues. And one helpful thing to have is something to wipe your fingers with, because there is no way around this being a messy, messy gig. So let's give this a whirl. The idea here is to cut the end at an angle, and then to snug the angle right up against the wall, so that you just fill in that crack. Like so. And then come along with the finger and wipe off the extra. Just like that. Messy, messy, messy. But worth it. It always turns out looking so pretty. Project working with these 3D tiles, I learned to be very systematic about how I paint these things, because it's easy to put paint on and have it run down and have drips in horrible, ugly ways. So let me show you how I go about painting these 3D tiles. And again, it's just good to be super patient and super systematic. So I'll go through and get the flat parts all the way down the row. And yes, we did cover an outlet box right there. This building, before we owned it, had all the copper stolen out of it. So if you see a box, an outlet box in the wall, it's unlikely that it actually has any working bits and pieces in there. So don't worry about that, that'll be covered up. Okay, so now we're going to come along in the second row, and it's a little bit tricky to get paint actually into these corners, so you have to be very careful about it and make sure you get it in there, because it doesn't look right if it's not. And I systematically go through and get all of these vertical pieces done. Now this is easy when it's just this many tiles. Doesn't take long at all. But when you've got the whole wall to do, it can be pretty time consuming, but it's alright. You just take it very systematically, step by step, and it works out just fine. Your brush is not going to want to get into that little corner right there. So be really intentional about getting in there. This would probably be easier for you to see if I did this in two different colors, but the primer, there is some difference between the primer and the paint, so it's not that hard to see the difference in person. I hear sirens in the distance and my husband's not home, and that always makes me just want to take a minute to stop and pray. So Lord, whoever it is that is in danger or in crisis, I just pray that your Holy Spirit would be with them now, and that help is on the way, and that they would be okay. And we ask for safety and healing for everybody involved, whoever they are, wherever they are. we have an outlet box right here in the corner, and the little fridge, it's under the counter, it's plugged in right here. And it's going to be covered. It's not a big deal. So I'm just moving the cord out of the way when it's time to paint in that little spot, because none of that will show. Okay, when I have done the vertical pieces, then I come along and do that horizontal section. So I've already done this with a little roller, but I'm going to go ahead and hit this again, this top section, just to get that, just to make sure it's all nicely painted. Now it's important to check and make sure you don't have any little ridges, that you're not creating ridges with the paint. So ridges or drips are not your friend in a project like this. Because they don't say in the description of the item when you're purchasing it that it's hard to paint. It is challenging to paint, but it can be done. If you're very systematic and careful about it, it can be done. It can be done very well. But of course, when they're selling you the product, they don't say it's going to take you hours to paint a wall. But that's all right. I imagine that in more commercial settings, it's probably done by spray paint. And that's ideal. All right, let's do this cross section here. Now when I was priming this, I had a foam brush, and that was a mistake. It was the only thing we had here on the property that wasn't already in another color, that was even close to being reasonable. But I would say that that was definitely not a particularly useful way to paint these tiles. It just didn't work. I think I worked at it long enough that I think I did get paint everywhere, but it was a chore trying to use a foam brush to do this. Again, very systematically and carefully, I'm trying to make sure that you've got, because these little corners right here, it's easy to miss those and to not get any paint in there at all, which looks really weird when you come back and realize that there's spots that don't have any paint at all. Now we'll do the very bottom row. And I do have a row of blue tape down here, so I don't have to worry about getting it on the stone, which is really nice because it doesn't want to come back off of there. Very bad. We got the Japanese stone for the countertop on Craigslist, and it had been in somebody's bathroom, and so this is a recycled countertop here. But I found that it stains pretty easily, so I would not buy white Japanese stone again. But I think I'm going to find a way to use that to my advantage and to make it colorful instead of trying to fight it. Because, you know, trying to keep things clean and to keep them when they're super porous and they really want to stain, trying to keep things clean, it's just not a fun battle to fight. So I will probably not try that hard. Okay, so here we're going to begin this section. Now I'm going to show you how I have learned to do this. Okay, getting that little curve right there is important because that's the part that won't see it, because this little spot right here, right in there, it seems like the brush doesn't want to get right in there. So I begin by painting that circle. Okay, and I think actually what I'm going to do is go ahead, because this isn't very many, I can go ahead and paint that rim and then come back. And by the time I have gotten back to the first one, it'll be dry enough that I can add another coat without compromising the quality. So, just very carefully go in there and get this rim, because that is and try to make sure you're not adding any texture, because that's exactly what we really don't want. These are really beautiful when they're well lit, when they're well painted and well lit. So that's why I'm doing this so carefully and systematically, because I want it to be really fun to enjoy this. Get a little bit of texture, you can usually touch it with your finger and get it off of there. Now, it's really good when you're doing this to pay attention to the sections that you just went through, because I had some drips. And so it's good to just be paying attention as you go along. And I'm also keeping an eye on the pegboard, because sometimes if you get a really thick coat of paint on that, the little holes will grab the paint and then they'll leave a little drip. And so I got 2 little drips up there that I've noticed now. So I'm gonna go grab those drips before they dry. I don't want that texture, so it's just good to kind of pay attention, because it can be, it only takes a second to catch a drip and to keep that texture off the wall. But if once it's there and it's dried in place, it's not a pretty thing at all. So, and you get, I don't know if you can see this, but I'm really not getting a lot of paint on this brush at a time. It's just enough to keep it moist, because I really want to get into those little crevices without globbing it on. Okie dokie. Now let's come back. See, I had a little drip there. A little drip there. Okay, now we're going to come back and do the little leaves. Okay. Now this is a little bit like painting a fingernail. Okay? It really is a lot like painting a fingernail. You're starting at the corner and you're pressing in to get a nice leaf shape. Okay? the stuff that I'm telling you is stuff you'll figure out if you do this for a while. It's not, I mean, none of this is difficult. It's just that I've done it wrong. And I know how it can look if it's not done quite right. So I think these tips are helpful. And the reason I start on the inside and go out, much like painting a fingernail on these, is that if you come in this way, you can create a little ridge of paint right here. And that's what you really don't want. So I'm going to go from the inside out. Do you see what I see? Even with as careful as I have been, I have a drip. So just be paying attention. Junior doesn't care that I don't approve of him barking. It just doesn't enter his mind that the whole neighborhood doesn't want to know that somebody's walking by on the street. That's a beagle for you. They are cute, but they are loud. We have a beagle down the street that is, when we go by, when he's feeling up to it, he barks. But he's got this bark that's like, he's barked so many barks that he doesn't have much of a voice left, so he sounds very hoarse. And it cracks me up, so I call him Horsey, because he was probably terrorized the neighborhood, just like this dog does. But now he's so old that he just doesn't have the voice anymore. I mean, the worst thing about this little guy, I mean, he's a very sweet dog, don't get me wrong, but he's out at the very first light, and he's out very late, and sometimes in the winter he's out when it's really cold and when it's really dark, so it's like, it doesn't seem like the ideal scenario for a little guy, but his family is not always able to care for him very well. So we try to make allowances for him because he doesn't have a very good life. He didn't get lucky with a family like Ella did. Ella is a very lucky little girl, because she is loved within an inch of her life. All right, that coat is done. We will let it dry and see how it looks. And then, who knows, maybe it'll get a little more. I'm seeing a lot of brush strokes, which I'm not crazy about. But you know, it is what it is. As they say so eloquently, it is what it is. I got a good bit of paint left I may just take a look at some stuff around here and see if I can put a second or third or fourth coat on some places just to get a little bit more even coverage. I think the doors especially could use another coat, but they probably need it to dry a little bit more, a little drier. I also painted the floor, and so because of the casters on some of these pieces around here, I've got little spots on the floor. So I may move this piece of furniture that's got all these casters under it into place and then kind of touch up the floor, see if I can cover some of those little spots because they're kind of annoying.
End of story.